How do you measure the impact technology has in your business? Hey everyone, Luke Desmond, another episode of Tax, Tech and Tactics. Today we're going to be talking about technology, how we leverage technology to grow through the increase of efficiency. But also, not only how do we use technology, but how do we measure it? So, as a CFO, the question I always want to be asking myself is, are we getting a good return on investment on any of our costs, the projects that we're implementing, and how do we constantly improve efficiency? So, technology is obviously a passion of mine, and it's obviously something that has impacted business for a long time, but never more so, arguably, than what we're about to see over the next few years or perhaps decade. But with the rapid increase of development of AI, technology is becoming an even more important part of businesses going forward. So when I'm looking at technology in my own business and across businesses that I work with, I will loosely group that technology into delivering one or more of four different things. And if it doesn't deliver on one of these four things, at least more so than the cost of implementing the software, then it's an easy no for me. And that's really important that we have a way to analyze technology and the positive impact it can have, but also weigh that up against the cost, particularly if, like me, you suffer from shiny new object syndrome. So what I mean by that is anytime I see a new tech that looks cool, I want to go and play with it and I want to introduce it to my team. However, there is a cost of that. And I'm not just talking about the cost of the software itself. That's an easy cost to identify. What my team have helped me to understand over the years is actually there's a much larger hidden cost in the impact of training, the implementation, and also efficiency across the business. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is how do we look at the efficiency and the returns across the business as a whole, rather than just on a project by project basis. So these four areas I'm looking to deliver on for improvement projects coming from technology. The first is actually one that sits outside, perhaps mostly outside anyway, of improving efficiency, but that is adding more value. So everything we do is about adding more value. How can we add more value to our clients and our customers and deliver more to them? So technology here in this section here could allow us to do something that we previously couldn't do, get access to information that we couldn't do, or deliver it in a way that we couldn't, that the client values. But the really important thing here is, does the client actually value it? So will the client notice it? Because sometimes we can put improvements in, the clients don't even notice that we put these improvements in. So will the client notice that improvement? Will they value it? So software teams, softwares with dev teams implementing dark mode here, I'm talking to you. Yes, they might notice it, but will they really value it? And does it outweigh the cost of implementation? So if that's a yes, great, we'll put that in. But what you're actually doing, particularly if this is a new part of the process, you're probably actually increasing costs because you've got the software costs and then perhaps the time of your staff to do something they weren't previously doing. So this isn't actually improving efficiency. However, what it is doing is it's pulling some of the other growth levers. So most of the time when we're doing this sort of work, adding more value, it means that we can charge more. You deliver more value, people are happy to pay you more. So you put up the price. So we're pulling that growth lever of increasing transaction value. So that's great. I do appreciate there are circumstances where adding more value doesn't necessarily mean you can charge more at the same time. So if you're not charging more, you're actually going to pull three growth levers at once by delivering more value without increasing the price. So you will generate more leads because people will be happier, they'll refer more to you. You will increase your lead conversion because if you're delivering more value at the same price, it makes that process an easier one to sell and get clients, customers on board. And you're also keeping more clients because you have a better service, you reduce your churn. So by focusing on adding more value, you can either increase your price, which is the increase your transaction value lever, or you can increase three at once, which is generate more leads, increase lead conversion, and keep more clients. So absolute win-win in terms of add more value. Now, the three other sections that I'm looking for here are more focused on more focused on improving efficiency. So they will also slot in to add more value, most of these as well. But for us, being a service-based business, everything's about communication, how we communicate with clients, how we communicate the value, the one-way and the two-way conversations that we have. So my second category is improve and speed up the communications. So yes, Zoom is great. It makes it easier to have one-to-one conversations, so two-way conversations, rather than physical meetings. We might save a bit of time there, but it doesn't really differentiate if everyone's doing that. What I do like here, though, are things that provide automation. Spoiler, that's step number 3. But provide automation and allow us to improve that communication. So things like when we are having longer one-to-ones over Zoom, then we are looking for automatic note-taking apps. So we like Fireflies, for example. Takes all our minutes of the meetings, it produces tasks for everyone, keeps everyone on the same page, and that saves time at the end of the meeting. But also it allows us to concentrate during the meeting with the client in a one-to-one basis and focus on what they're saying and focus on delivering more value in that session, rather than focus on furiously typing up the notes that they convey to us. So that's really important. Loom, so videos like this are absolutely vital. It delivers things in 2 ways. So asynchronous communications allow our team to be more flexible and be more efficient. I.e., when we get to a point where we need to communicate, we don't need to go off and book a meeting or a phone call. We can just record the video and allow them to watch it when they are ready to watch it. That goes for both clients and for team members. So that improves efficiency, but also the one-to-many relationship of video, in that we can record one video that we can use over and over again in our onboarding. But importantly, it still delivers great value. So previously, one-to-many might have been an email or something in a written form, which is fine, but delivering that through a video makes it feel really bespoke, still gives great value to the person watching that video, but it means that the team can handle a lot more work and a lot more clients at once. And then another thing now is chatbots. Now, I used to hate chatbots, or still do hate a lot of chatbots, because they're really obvious at the chatbots, and you get stuck in these endless loops of questions where you're not getting to where you want because they're just filtering on logic. And if you ask this question, you'll move on to the next step of the logic tree. But the AI style chatbots are now greatly improved. And as they start to take over, they will allow us to use that automation that came from chatbots to service more clients per staff member, but also while providing that really high quality service. The third is automate or automation. Now, this has long been the benefit of using technology for decades, really, is that you're automating a task that you would have otherwise done manually. So here we're looking at things like workflows and automatic emails within our CRM that is bespoke. So it still allows us to deliver that high value, but it allows us to automate that. So again, it means that we can pull staff back from the sort of more admin related tasks, can concentrate on delivering value. So again, we're adding more value, but massively increasing our capacity. Zapier pulls everything together from the various different pieces of software and eliminates most of the admin related tasks. Through automation in our marketing software, we will systemize our sales process, and we have managed to greatly increase our lead conversion rates by automating and systemizing that process. A quick word of caution on this. I strongly believe that you should work out what you want to deliver and systemize that process first, and then look for technology to help you automate that. If you go the other way around and you go to technology and you try and bend your processes to fit the software, it just creates all kinds of problems. It doesn't work as well. So systemize process first, then automate next. And then finally, the fourth sort of category of improvement projects is the ones that give our team superpowers. So we're not replacing them, we're not automating them, these tasks, but what we are doing is we're using the equivalent of that sort of physical exoskeleton that you used to see in sort of sci-fi films, delivering that to our people's brains and really taking what they're doing in terms of delivering a service, but multiplying it by 10, 20, 30 times in terms of what they can do and also the quality of that. Now, bear in mind, we're saying we're improving the superpowers of our teams. We're not replacing them. The common mistake with AI is that it's used to replace rather than greatly enhance what we're doing. So our marketing team will be producing more content, but quicker and higher quality content. Our developers will be speeding up the process of coding and debugging as well. So they're still in charge, but greatly enhancing the capability and the capacity and the efficiency of all of our team members. So now that I explained the 4 different ways that I'll look for a project to make improvements to our business, how do we measure this? Now, this is where it gets tricky because, like I said, it's fairly easy to measure success on an individual project by project basis, which is important. We can look at the cost. The defined cost is easy, the software license cost. Perhaps slightly hidden is the implementation and the training costs. But usually we can work those out, or at least have a guess at those. And we'll track that against the benefit of a project in one of a few different ways. It will save us hours. It will increase our profit. It will improve the customer satisfaction. We use Net Promoter Score, NPS, to track and measure our customer satisfaction in a way that you can see changes. Or perhaps it might even reduce other costs, particularly other software costs. Sometimes software will amalgamate or replace or be more efficient than previous software costs. So it could be reducing costs there as well. So looking at it on an individual basis is easy. But as I said earlier, I need to look at this as a whole across the business. And this is a really important skill set that a CFO will have. So there's no one single magic KPI. There never is. But there are a few different KPIs or metrics that I will look at, depending on the business and the position that they're in, but look at and piece together to be able to make that judgment call. So the first is gross profit margin, your gross profit percentage. You get that by getting your gross profit, which is revenue minus cost of sales, divided by revenue times by 100, and you're going to get a percentage. This is essentially the efficiency metric. So it's how efficient are you being at generating sales. So for a product-based business, it's easy that the increased efficiency here will come from reducing your material costs or removing wastage. But if you involve people, if you're a service-based business, this is perhaps slightly trickier here, because what I'm not suggesting is you go out and give your staff or your team members reduced wages. That's not going to help grow. Yes, some people will use technology to completely cut out costs of staff and layoffs and redundancies, etc. Unfortunately, there's no escaping that in some businesses. But actually, really what we're doing for the most part is we're increasing capacity. So the important thing to note is if we increase capacity and we got 10 team members and we say, actually, now they can handle more clients, great, that software implementation project was a success. But you won't see that reflected in the gross profit margin yet. Why not? Because it's increasing your capacity. Until you bring the sales in, you can now bring sales in without increasing your wages, but you need to bring the sales in. Once you bring those sales in, your gross profit margin will go up. So what I'm saying here is there's a lag between the success of this project and it reflecting an increase in your gross profit margin. So that's important. Another thing to remember is the cost of this project, i.e. software cost, sits in your overheads. So whilst it might make your direct wages, your team members that are delivering the service more efficient, you've actually got a cost sitting in overhead. So if you look at gross profit margin in isolation, then you're ignoring the cost element of that. And finally, the improvement projects across your team won't just impact your cost of sales, your direct wages. So a lot of improvements come from, at the moment, particularly with AI and automation and stuff, come from your marketing. Your marketing and your wages and all the rest of that will be sitting in your overheads. So an improvement there of your efficiency of your marketing and sales team won't impact your gross profit at all. So the improvement will be lost. If you're a SaaS company and you're developing new products, again, your devs are going to be sitting in your overheads, not in your direct wages, not your cost of sales. So you're kind of ignoring the improvement there. So yes, this is really important, but again, keep in mind those other areas. Don't look at this in isolation. Revenue per employee, or RPE, is an incredibly simple metric that makes it attractive for a lot of business owners, particularly non-finance trained business owners, to track. Simplicity is great. So it is something that I do track and we do talk to our clients about, but it does have its pitfalls as well. So revenue per employee is easy. Just take the overall annual sales, which everyone will know, and divide it by the number of full-time equivalent employees. So if you have part-time or outsourced, count them as half. And it will give you a figure in the thousands. So probably somewhere 60K to 100K is probably the typical range. So any improvement projects that you implement through technology should increase the amount of revenue you can generate per employee. So a bit like the gross profit margin, except it's across all of your employees. So you don't have to work out direct versus indirect wages and all the rest of it. You should be able to do that, but you don't have to. So my main gripe with this, though, is it takes no account whatsoever of the actual cost of your team members. So where it is useful is for tracking where you are now to where you are in the future and that measurement in between. It doesn't necessarily tell you, so it shows you whether you've improved. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether that's still a good number or not. For that, you need to work out what your costs are. So what I mean, for example, is let's say you are a SaaS business. Your average wage is 80K because you've got loads of expensive developers, and you have an RPE, a revenue per employee of 90K. Well, that's not great, is it? Because a revenue per employee of 90K when it's costing you 80K in wages doesn't give you much margin to cover your overhead to make a profit. Let's say on the flip side, you're a service business and you make a lot of use of more junior team members. Your average salary might be 40K, for example. Then if you have an RPE, a revenue per employee of 90K, then that looks much better because you've got a lot more margin there. So you need to factor in wages as well. And again, it doesn't even consider the cost of the software. So moving on from revenue per employee, another one you can look at is the staff costs as a percentage of your revenue. So this works in a very similar way as revenue per employee and has a lot of the same benefits, except what we're doing here is we're factoring in the staff costs as well. So that example I just gave you previously about revenue per employee looking good in one business and the same revenue per employee looking terrible in another, you don't get that here. So what we're doing is overall staff costs divided by revenue expressed as a percentage, and we can see whether that's increasing. So if your revenue is going up and your staff can handle more clients, great. But if your salaries have increased as well, then you have another problem there. Obviously, wage increases may fall outside of the improvement projects that you're making through software. So then there might be other reasons you need to increase wages. The market's increased, or perhaps you were just underpaying your staff. That doesn't lessen the impact of this software project. So again, if you look at this one in isolation, it probably gives a more meaningful view as to your costs overall as a business, but it can mask the improvement from the software. So again, looking at these together is really useful. And then the final thing that we'll be looking at is the software cost. So hopefully you got your booking structure in a way that you can just pull out and look at your software costs. What's really dangerous, though, is to look at your software costs in isolation and then increasing. So let's say last year software costs are 50K. This year they're 100K. On the face of it, your overheads have increased by 50K. That's not particularly great. However, we can't look at this in isolation. We need to look at this in relation to the size of the business and, again, how efficient we're being. So software as a percentage of revenue, for example, software cost divided by revenue will give us a percentage, and we should see that percentage may go up or down, but we can also then look at the software cost per person. So again, total software cost divided by the number of people. Now, what we would expect to see is the software cost per people will actually increase. The more efficient you're being and these projects are working, the more software you'll be looking to put in. So your software will increase. So looking at this in isolation, it might look bad, but this is why you have to look at these all together. Look at the software cost per revenue per employee, and then make sure that you're getting the benefit from an increase in revenue per employee, gross profit margin, all the rest of it. What's really useful for looking at your software costs in this sort of way is that you can then look to include this as a driver in your forecasting, your scenario planning, your modeling, etc. So we know that when we hire people, they will come with a cost, an additional cost. It might be £100 a month, might be £200 a month, whatever it is, it will vary, but we can factor that into the model. For any business that's serious about using technology, and everyone should be, to increase and grow, software cost is going to be a considerable part of your cost going forward. So it shouldn't just sit there as a random overhead on its own. It should be factored in and driven into the forecast as well. So what I would say finally to wrap all this up is make sure that any software is delivering an improvement. Make sure you understand the costs that are associated with that and you look at measuring the ROI on an individual basis. But then make sure you have the metrics and the skill set of someone to explain those to you in a way that you can piece it all together and look at the bigger picture. Everyone will use technology to some extent, but the extent you use that to will determine your success over the next few years. I've seen software projects go in and deliver as much as 100%, 200% increase in net profit, which is brilliant. Everyone would love that. That's over the last couple of years. With AI now, we will see an order of magnitude of increases from some of these projects, and over a very short period of time, really, in the scale of things, in terms of a couple of years, we will see people improve by 1,000%, 2,000%, 5,000% if they get the use of this technology right. If you're not embedding technology at the core of your business, how will you possibly compete with that?